Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Barb Roos, and I am here this evening. Today is the celebration day for the release of my new book, Surrendered. This is 40 devotions to help you let go and live like Jesus. For those of you who were just with me on my Better Together Facebook Live broadcast, thank you for sticking around for what I'm calling the bonus show. This broadcast this evening is because I wanted to share why I wrote this book with you. I also want to share some of the content, some of the giveaways. So if you are joining me, whether you're on my author page, my regular Facebook page, and we're streaming live to YouTube, can you guys say hello to me? Just drop a hi in the comments. Let me know what state you're coming in from. And I would love just to hear you so that I know that I am not in this whole internet thing by myself. So we've got some folks who join in the comments. Mary Dolan from California. She says she loves the devotional. Thank you. Hi, Sarah. I'm so glad that you're here. Thanks for leaving the comment. Elizabeth. Michelle Francis, thank you. Michelle was a part of the influencer team. Zelda, thank you for staying and being a part of it. Hi, this is, let's see, we've got Catherine. Catherine is my right-hand gal. I would not be sitting here today for this book launch if it weren't for my assistant, Catherine. Elizabeth is joining from Nashville, Tennessee. And then there's Steve Hoopmacher, and Steve and I work together on staff at my local church for many, many years, and he's been a blessing to my life. And so thank you for joining me. We've got folks who are coming in from far and wide, everyone. I am thankful that you are here. Jennifer Ann up in the UP, it was 2 years ago this week that I was up there with you. Lisa Cross from Weinbrenner Seminary in Findlay. Woo! So good to have you here. As I said, this is the new way for us to gather together. And this is the launch of my new book, Surrendered, 40 Devotions to Help You Let Go and Live Like Jesus. And some of you might be wondering why in the world I would come online to talk about it. I mean, I've been posting pictures and different things. And the reason why, there's two things that I want to share with you about why I wrote this for you. And then I'm going to share with you a teaching illustration. It's a special piece of art that I'm going to show you this evening. And this piece of art, I believe, will cast a vision for you that will help you see yourself. If you're going through a hard time right now, rather than see yourself as broken, I believe that this piece of art, this illustration, can help you see how God redeems and restores when we go through hard times. And then I'm going to share with you practically 6 things that you keep in mind when your life is out of control. And so there are going to be some very, very helpful and hopeful things that I'm going to share with you this evening. So I want to say hello. We've got Becky, the new devotional group book that she has. I'm so glad that you've got it. Michelle, she said it's been getting her through some rough days. Michelle has had some tragic things happen to some people she cares about recently. Amy Crofts, she works at my local church. She says they're excited. She's excited to do it with her group. Carrie Tawney used to be my former intern, part of my influencer team. I love that Andrea sent a note yesterday. Her book just came in. And Letitia, she was a part of my pilot group for a Bible study that I have next year. So friends, thank you all for your support. But the 2 things that I want to share with you about why I wrote this book is, first of all, do you guys remember the quarantine? Remember those months when we were in our homes and or things were shut down because some of you were at work. I was actually writing this devotion during that time. And the hard part about that time for all of us was that we didn't have any control over what was going on. It seemed like there was this huge press pause in all of our lives. The future was uncertain and scary, and we were really uncomfortable. And though that's the definition of a wilderness season, that the wilderness season is a metaphor for when we can't do what we want to do, when we want to do it, and how we want to do it. And when we're in those seasons of life, that can cause us to become anxious and angry, and it can cause us to want to try to take control of things. So I wrote this devotion. I call it a spiritual, each day is like a spiritual cup of coffee. And you know, when you have, we're my coffee drinkers out there. If you are a coffee drinker, this is an interactive thing. If you are a coffee drinker, I would love to hear from you. And in a moment, I'm going to put up a comment. If you're a coffee drinker, I want you to let me know, do you drink it black? Do you drink it with lots of fancy things in it? And so go ahead and post that in the comments. Let me go ahead and put that up on the screen. But I wrote this devotion to be like a spiritual cup of coffee for you. Each of the devotions is only about it takes about 3.5 minutes to read, because I knew that in this time that we're living in, people are getting back into the rhythm and life is on the go again. And so I wanted to have something quick that you could use to encourage yourself. And so that's why I'm calling this a spiritual cup of coffee. And in just a few moments, I'll give you a little bit of a sip, but we've got some comments here. You guys move fast. So when it comes to, are you a coffee drinker? Catherine loves it sweet. That's true. Mary says, Mary is watching live on YouTube with cream and sugar. Let's see. We've got Brenda, who's with black coffee. Amy says, give me all the creamer. Let's see. We've got Becky with fancy. Michelle says she drinks cappuccino with lots of goodies and adds marshmallows. That's true. Brenda's getting fancy on us with cinnamon and a shot of vanilla creamer. And then we've got Cheryl, who says extra light, no sugar. So I've got we've got some more up top. Carrie, Carrie she's just extra here, honey. You go, girl. Venti, ice, skinny, vanilla latte, and skinny mocha with soy milk. Honey, that's a what? That's amazing. Marcia with flavored almond and coconut creamer. So here's the funny part, you guys. I don't drink coffee, I drink tea, but you get the gist. And so Elizabeth says milk and honey. Zelda she likes her coffee with her creamer drink. When I do drink coffee, I get the same drink every time. It's a tall, hot mocha. Like, I keep it simple. But this devotion, the reason why I wanted it to be a spiritual cup of coffee is because I wanted you to have a place where you could come for a quick dose of hope when life is difficult. And so right now, I want to read to you, and it'll just, again, each devotion is only 3.5 minutes long. And so for those of you who feel like, first of all, you're intimidated by the Bible, second, you don't think you've got time because your day is chaotic, or third, that you're worried about whether or not it's going to be helpful, I'm going to read to you a devotion that has a pandemic feel to it, but that will help you see that this quick dose of help could be just what you need every single day. And so I'm going to read to you day 26, and it's page 105, and it's titled Letting Go of Stuff. And so here we go. And please go ahead, if you want to, go ahead and set your watches and tell me when I'm done reading how long it took me to read in this devotional. So please go ahead and tell me how long it took for me to read this. Post it when I'm done. So here we go. Get ready, set, go. Day 26, letting go of stuff. Today's verse: store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rut and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Today's devotion: do you remember the great toilet paper chase during the COVID-19 crisis, right? Around the country, stores reported a toilet paper shortage, even though gastrointestinal issues weren't originally on the list of symptoms. When we're faced with one situation we can't control, a natural default is to go overboard on what we can control. One of the shine control loving behaviors is excessive planning or stockpiling. It's motivated by a desire to control any future or inconvenience by gathering more than what is needed. When my kids were small, I struggled with the anxious what ifs. I spent a lot of time buying extras that turned into excess because I didn't like the feeling of powerlessness when I didn't have what I needed. When there was a situation in my life that was out of control, I could go to my stockpile and smile because there was this sweet space where I felt like I was totally in control. Can you relate? To be clear, gathering extra isn't a sin. In light of bad weather or crisis events like the COVID pandemic, it's good to prepare for emergencies. But for everyday life, it's also good to ask yourself if you're gathering extra for an emergency or if you're exposing a control-loving behavior that you need to address. Our stockpiles should never be the source of our security. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 20, Jesus taught that our stockpiles should be made of treasures in heaven, not stockpiling our pantries or linen closets. We store treasures in heaven when we use all that we have for the glory of God. So whether God has given you a lot or a little, it can be leveraged for an internal purpose that shines the glory on God and not ourselves. Another time, Jesus told the story of a wealthy man who found himself with more than he could manage. The man decided that he would build bigger barns to store up the fruit of his prosperity. The man dreamed of his life after building the barns by saying, "You have grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." So now TV timeout. You guys have heard that quote, "Eat, drink, and be merry." It actually came from the Bible, y'all. Then Jesus calls the man a fool for being rich toward himself, but not rich toward God. Everything was about the man and nothing was about God. And while the man thought he was in control of all that he owned, the man forgot that God was in control of all things. The same goes for you. You can own all the stuff you want, but when it comes down to it, all of your stuff can't save your life. If you're stockpiling because you're afraid of what might happen in the future, you need to recognize that Jesus is your source of security. You can lose everything you own in this world, but you can never lose Jesus. Today's questions: what do you buy too much of because you're afraid you won't have enough? And in Matthew chapter 6, verse 20, what do you need to shift so that you're stockpiling treasures in heaven rather than stockpiling on earth? And then today's prayer: God, I want to store up treasures in heaven for your glory rather than obsess about my stockpile on a shelf. When I'm shopping, remind me that it's okay to gather extra for emergencies, but for everyday life, I need to put my security in you. Amen. So, friends, that was one of the devotionals. And if you timed, let me know how long it took for me to read that devotion. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. And throughout the evening, I'm actually going to draw some winners to win a few copies of my devotion, my new devotional. And so it's going to be based on your participation. So get in there and be a part of the comments. And right now I'm posting a question of what do you buy too much of because you're afraid you won't have enough. So that's going to be the question that you see here in just a moment. And let me check the comments right now. Michelle Francis said 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Absolutely. So now the question is, friends, what do you buy too much of because you're afraid that you won't have enough? And you can drop in your comments. And I love for those of you who realize that, yeah, it only takes a few minutes each day. And think of the game changer this can be. Have you ever been in a really bad mood and you just knew that your whole day was going to be ruined because something wasn't going your way? I wrote this devotional for you because I don't want you to spend all day in a bad mood. We all have things in our lives we can't control. So some of the topics that I write about in the book, letting go of your fears, letting go of fixing, letting go of overthinking. Are there any overthinkers out there? Letting go of interrupting, letting go of mistakes, letting go of nagging, letting go of adult children. And then we write about like faith like Jesus, hope like Jesus, letting go of toxic people. So there are a lot of topics in my new Surrendered Devotional that can be that quick cup of spiritual coffee that you need, that will provide not just hope, but also help, so that you can stop having a bad day and focus on God. And so for those of you who chimed in on that question, let's see some of the answers to what do you buy too much of because you're afraid you won't have enough. Let's see. Sarah said, ironically, coffee. That's so good, Sarah. I mean, honey, that's just so good. Let's see. We've got, who else do we have? Zelda, she says too much washing power. I mean, that's real. Let's see. Yeah, and Brenda said bottled water. Andrea says coffee. Having a bad day. I'm watching comments on two separate paces. Julie Lyle's car says weirdly she overbuys white cornmeal, which she only uses on Thanksgiving. I buy it thinking I'm ahead of the game, and then I realize I've already bought it a couple of months before and a couple of months before that. Julie, that's why I love you. Carrie Tawny says party items. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Faith Hall says flour to make tortillas. You know what, honey? I'm down with that. Let's see. Michelle Francis, bath and body stuff to give as gifts. This is so good, you guys. Amanda, she talked about being an overthinker. So you guys resonating with some of the topics. These are all things that we all struggle with, friends. And so when it comes to having control-loving issues, we all struggle with trying to hold on to control. And why is it that we often hold on to control? And often it comes down to two motivations. The one motivation is that we're afraid. We are afraid that someone that we love, we're afraid of a dream, we're afraid of a situation, we have fear. And the second is pride. It's that we see the way that things should be. And so our control looks like our expectations. So when we're struggling with fear or when we're acting out of pride, ultimately what we want to do is avoid brokenness. We don't like feeling broken. And so this evening, one of the most important things I want to share with you is something that really gave me a sense of how I don't have to be afraid when I don't have control, and yet there are hard things happening in my life. And I teach this illustration pretty regularly, and I want to share this illustration with you because I talk about it in the Bible study. And this illustration, I hope, gives you a sense that if there is something happening in your life right now and you are feeling just broken and you are feeling like God can't possibly put your life back together, I believe that this illustration can make a difference in your life. And so the illustration, it's related to a piece of pottery. In the 15th century, there was a Japanese shogun, and he created this piece of, or he broke his teacup. And when he went to the artisans in his country, he wanted them to put this teacup back together. Now, I want to set the scene for you. He is a Japanese leader, and the shoguns, I think they were just known for killing people that didn't follow their directions. So when he brings the broken pieces of his teacup and he puts it down to the artisans and he says, fix this, you can imagine that they were probably like, ah. So they took the broken pieces of his teacup. And this is the 15th century. They did not have Gorilla Glue back then. But what they did was they reassembled the pieces, and instead of using an ugly resin or whatever the adhesive was at their time, they used gold to repair the broken pieces. And this developed into an art form called kintsukuroi. And right now, I want to show you what kintsukuroi looks like. And somebody told me about this a number of years ago, and I went online. And this kintsukuroi became a very important illustration to me, because all of us face circumstances in life that are out of our control. And in difficult circumstances, when we don't have control, sometimes things happen that break our hearts. And for those of you who know my story, you know that my family went through a very long and difficult season due to an addiction that broke our family's heart. It ruined relationships. It ultimately led to the loss of my 26-year marriage. And for me, there was a very long season in my life when I didn't have control over what was happening. And I felt like that broken teacup. And every day I would pray and I would ask God for help. But what I didn't have was this vision of what life would look like when my heart would be healed. Because when my heart would be healed, it wasn't that I was going to get my old life back. My old life was broken. But just because my old life was broken, that didn't mean that my life would be less than. The reason why I love kintsukuroi, it actually means more beautiful for being broken. Because this is what happens, friends, is that God, when we let him, when we let go of control, when we surrender, when we stop trying to fix ourselves and fix others, and we gather up the broken pieces of our lives and we say, God, we can't fix this. We can't fix ourselves. We can't fix others, but we're going to give these broken pieces to you. This is how God, he not only puts the broken pieces of us back together, but God doesn't super glue us back together and send us back out in the world where we're going to get broken again. What God does is that he is the gold and he holds us together with himself. And if you know anything about the message of the Bible, it is about God's love for his people. And we live in a broken world. We live in a world where every single one of us experiences a broken heart. And sometimes we don't have the answers for why bad things happen to good people or why bad people get away with the bad things. But what we do have is that we have hope. We have hope that even when we're broken, that God can heal us and that we can be more beautiful, more valuable, more confident, more hopeful on the other side of what we've been through versus seeing ourselves as broken people who won't have anything to offer in the world. And so I want you to let me know, does this illustration make sense to you? Can you see in your life letting go of control isn't something that you have to be afraid of because you're afraid of being broken, but rather letting go of control or surrender? That is the path to peace. That is the path to allowing God to hold you together, to do inside of you what you can't do for yourself. And like I said, I talk about this concept in the Surrendered Devotional. And so if you are joining us right now for the celebration, I'm glad you're here. I love talking about the imagery of kintsukuroi because it is, for me, it is a beautifully life-saving vision of how God can restore our broken hearts and how he can restore the things in our lives that we don't think can be restored. And so I'm going to check the comments right now and see what you ladies are sharing. Elizabeth I appreciate Elizabeth in your comments, friends. She has posted another excerpt from the Surrendered Devotional. You can read Letting Go of the Past. Amy says she loves the saying that he turns the broken into beautiful. That's right. Tabitha loves the phrase more beautiful for being broken. Thank you. Tabitha is the producer for my Facebook Live show. Zelda says, yes, there is hope in God, and goes on to say that it's a wonderful illustration. Letting go of control is what I totally need to do to stop trying to always fix things. I have to let go. And so that is so true for all of us. Oh my gosh, the comments are coming in, ladies. Marcia, that surrender is a daily practice, not something that's done once and forgotten. And Marcia, I'm so glad you said that, friends, because again, this is the size of a book that you can put by the nightstand. You can leave this in your car that you can read right before you hop out and go to work. You can slip this into your backpack, your diaper bag. This little devotional can go anywhere. And anytime you're struggling with control. And how do you know if you're struggling with control? I talk about the 5 control loving behaviors. I use the acronym SHINE, SHINE. The S, and I want you to listen as I explain these. And if one of these control loving behaviors resonates with you, tell us which control loving behavior resonates with you. The S stands for stonewalling. The H stands for helicoptering. That's micromanaging like a helicopter parent. The I stands for interrupting. And that's when you either cut people off for what they're saying or you interfere with their plans. And then the N stands for nagging. I don't need to explain that. And then just like today's devotional, the E stands for excessive stockpiling. So when you look at this list, which of the control-loving behaviors do you struggle with? Go ahead and drop that in the comments. And so while you're dropping that in the comments, I'm actually going to read some more comments. And then I want to tell you about some resources that I've developed for you. So when we were talking about the Kintsukuroi illustration, let's see, Jennifer Ann, she posted about Kintsukuroi and the picture of the broken cup. I love that. Ann says that surrender is difficult, but when I allow myself to yield to it, it's worth the risk. Yes. Julie says that God is the gold. Yes, he is. Jennifer Ann says she's got to work on surrendering every day. Honey, I got a flag. I got a big old surrender flag that I have to work on every day. And so I love that you guys recognize that the illustration really paints a beautiful picture of how God, he puts us back together. So now you're chiming in. Woo! You guys are killing it on the comments, my friends. I love this. We've got some comments here. What are some of the control-loving behaviors that you struggle with? And so Amy says that she struggles with helicoptering and nagging. I want you guys to notice that there's going to be a theme in your comments. So Jennifer Ann says kids with nagging. Is this a pandemic thing? Becky Ann says helicoptering and nagging. Wait, we've got a new one. Carrie says stonewalling. Stonewalling is when we dig our heels in and we don't cooperate. Amy says, girl, surrender is tough for this control lover. Honey, I wrote a book and a Bible study. The struggle is real. Let's see who else we have. Dawn says that helicoptering and stonewalling, this is a grace space. We are not judging each other. Sarah says interrupting. Yep. Zelda says helicoptering. Absolutely. Interrupting. These are all control-loving behaviors that we engage in when we're afraid or when we have pride. And we don't like calling it pride, but it's when we say, if everybody would just do what we're saying, we'll all be happy. Well, that's pride. And the idea of surrender or letting go, it is a prayer and it's a process. Many of you have talked about how surrender is something that you've got to work on each day. And so the last thing that I want to share with you is inside of the Surrendered Devotional, there are 6 tools that are one tool at the end of every devotional that you can use as a reminder to help you let go of control each day. So there are practical tools that you can use. And friends, these are tools that I developed out of my own surrender journey. So what I am sharing with you has been tried and true and proven, because we all struggle with control-loving behaviors. Melody, she says, interrupting as well as excessive stockpiling. Susan, thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you. Susan says worrying and worrying. Michelle says controlling. Leah says helicoptering, nagging, interrupting. Do you all have this sense that we're all in this together? So let me tell you about these 6 tools. I call them the 6 surrender principles. And every devotion that we have in the Surrender Devotional, every devotion ends with one of those tools that you can use each day. And so here is a card. Here we go. Here is a card that I have with the 6 tools on it. And you might be thinking, how do I get that card? I'll tell you about it in just a minute. But the tools themselves are so helpful. And I'm going to show you what the tools are on the screen. And I had to free up some space. And so give me a moment. And so the very first tool that you can remember is that you are not in control of others or outcomes. And so I want you to say this with me. I am not in control of others or outcomes. This is surrender principle number 1. And when we use this as a tool, what I do is I repeat it to myself. When I feel like when I want to helicopter, because that's big for me, I got adult kids. When I feel the need to helicopter, I say to myself, Barb, you are not in control of others or outcomes. And that helps me to back off of making that whatever it was that I was going to do or say or nag somebody, because I know that I can use that tool and it reminds me to focus on who God is. Now, the second tool is I choose to live by faith and not follow my feelings. And so if you resonate with that one, I want you to repeat that out loud. I choose to live by faith, not rush to follow my feelings. Now, am I saying that feelings are bad? Feelings are not bad. Feelings are actually good. It's good for us to have our God-given emotions. We do not want to pretend, we want to keep it real. But in the process of keeping it real, we also want to make sure that we're not living by our feelings. And because when we're living by our feelings, then that is when we start doing those control-loving behaviors. So you want to definitely think through and go, okay, if I am feeling some things that I want to act on, I need to use that tool and say, I can choose to live by faith. I do not have to rush to follow my feelings. So now, surrender principle number 3, and this one I absolutely love, friends, because there are times when I can start out really well trusting God, and I'm a rock star. I'm making sure that I am like not nagging. I'm not doing anything that would like try to control others or outcomes. And then bam, all of a sudden I'm nagging somebody. So surrender principle number 3 is I can always let go and give my problems to God. And so that one for me is such a big one, because when I let go and give my problems to God, that then is a reminder that even if I do engage in control, I do not have to beat myself up. I can just stop and go, I can start all over again. I can stop helicoptering. I can stop nagging. I can stop doing any of the things that I'm doing that I know is going to drive me crazy. So that is surrender principle number 3 as a tool. If any of these are resonating with you, I want you to put that in the comments because I want you to go, hey, this is helpful. This is something that I can use starting tonight. I mean, do you need to let go and give your problems to God tonight? So think about that. Now, let me go to surrender principle number 4. Surrender principle number 4 is trusting God's promises will bless me, but pushing my plans will stress me. Is anybody out there? Does that resonate with you? Where is it that you are pushing your plans right now? Is there something happening in your life where you know for a fact that it's not working, and yet you keep pushing and pushing? Somebody who's not making good decisions, and you keep pushing and pushing. There is something that you want to buy or something you want to do or a job you want to get, and you keep pushing and pushing, and it's stressing you out. Is it time for you to let go? Is it time for you to open up your hands and say, God, what I'm trying to do, it isn't working. And I need to let go. And I need to trust you with it. Does anyone need to do that out there today? Does anyone need to let go of pushing your plans? In this pandemic season right now, for all of us, we really are trying to deal with things that are out of control, but sometimes we do have to step back, and we've got to allow God to lead. And so I'm going to go through the last 2 principles in a moment, but let me go ahead. There's a lot of comments that have come in. And thank you, Barbara. She shared that she's leading the Surrendered Bible Study. She's making a reference. I have a 6-week Bible study that's right here. I wrote my name on it because I was afraid of losing it, my own Bible study. But this is a 6-week Bible study on Jesus in the wilderness. These are 40 devotions that are a spiritual cup of coffee to let go. So Bible study, short devotions, in-depth, brief, quick, powerful, life-changing. So Barbara is leading the Bible study, and they're loving it. Tammy says that I am not in control of others and outcomes. That's a surrender tool she's used the most. Jennifer says she's struggling so hard with her adult daughter who had a baby and decisions. It's hard work surrendering. Yes. Brenda says number 3. Yep, you can always let go and give your problems to God. Zelda, good. I'm glad that you find these helpful. These are, again, every day at the end of each devotion, there is one tool every day that you can focus on to apply to your life and whatever is happening right now. Jamie says number 3, but sometimes I don't think God wants to deal with all the drama, so she's the one that'll do the work. Girl, you just preached a whole word right there. Sometimes we step in because we think that God's like, I'm busy, but God, he is there. He is our path to peace. Amy says, Barb, you're calling me out. Number 3 is tough. We can always let go and give our problems to God. And so, Sarah, I'm so glad that you are enjoying these. We've got 2 more surrender principles. Number 5 is when fear tempts me to flee, fix, or force my way, I will choose to stop and pray. And I love using that particular surrender principle whenever I am thinking about fear. Whenever I'm feeling afraid, that is my indicator that I am about to start using a control-loving behavior. So if you're struggling with fear and you think about the things that you are doing, if you are stonewalling, if you are helicoptering, if you're interrupting, if you're nagging, if you're buying, and it's related to fear, these are the tools that I want you to learn and memorize so that you can experience God's power and his provision and his peace, because he does not want you to live all worn out by worry. And so I want to tell you the last surrender principle. And this is the very first surrender principle that I created for my life when our family was going through our crisis. And so this is surrender principle number 6. And I want you to read this with me. It's surrender is, well, hold on. You can't read it yet because I included a typo. So let me fix the typo real quick. So here we go. Surrender is my only path to God's peace, power, and provision. I want you to read that with me again. We're almost done this evening, friends, but this is an important place for us to land on. That surrender is my only path to God's peace, power, and provision. This is surrender principle number 6. That surrender isn't giving up. You're not throwing your hands up in the air. It's not giving in. It's not being a pushover. But surrender is where you say, God, if it's going to get done, you're going to have to do it. And because God is the God of the universe, He is the God who you matter to Him, and the people in your life matter to Him. You can trust Him, even when you're not sure about how the outcome is going to turn out. That's why I wanted to teach you about kintsukuroi, because sometimes when we let go, it's still hard and it's not easy. But I want you to see that God can create beauty even when things in our lives don't turn out as planned. I am a 6-foot tall witness to kintsukuroi. I am before you today as someone who didn't have control, whose heart was incredibly broken. And I have seen through surrender how God has held me together with Himself. And so that's why I love sharing these surrender principles with you. And so we're almost done. I want to let you know how you can find the Surrendered book. If you have not gotten the Surrendered book, I want to encourage you to grab it, friends. Not because I need to sell books. I would love to be able to help as many people as possible. But what I know right now is that many of your lives are out of control because of the pandemic. I know that many of you right now, you are trying to fix things and you're trying to force solutions, and you are anxious and you are nagging and interrupting and buying stuff you don't need and stonewalling. And God wants you to experience His peace, His power, and His provision. And so that is why I am here with you this evening. And Amy says, did you ever notice that the act of surrender is the same as worship when you throw your hands up? And yeah, giving over and saying, God, if it's going to get done, you're going to have to do it. That is freedom. Zelda, this flag, honey, I made during the pandemic. I made it at Walmart, just so you know. Carrie says the surrender provides so much peace even during the scary unknown. Absolutely. Friends, if you are listening this evening, I want you to just let me know exactly how we can pray for you. How can I pray for you this evening? Jennifer, I'm so glad that you've got the Bible study and now you know you need the devotional. I want to wrap up what we're doing this evening with prayer. I've got about a minute left, and I am just grateful that you spent some time with me this evening. I hope that what I shared this evening was a blessing to you. Let me know in the comments how I can pray for you. Tell me in the comments what you took away this evening that was helpful for you. How were you encouraged this evening? I would love for you to share that. And for those of you who are looking for the devotional, you can find that information in the bottom. But how were you encouraged this evening? Please, this is something that I am hoping, that I prayed, that God would use, especially for those of you who are going through hard times. And so let's multitask. I'm going to pray for you as we wrap up the evening. And then I am going to let go of the broadcast as I'm going to choose 5 winners. And then I will contact the winners so that I can send you a copy of my Surrendered Devotional, because I have the copies right here, fresh off the press, and I want to share them with you. So let's pray. God, I thank you for everyone who is here this evening, whether they're watching live or on the replay. God, there are things in all of our lives that we cannot control, but we know that you love us, that you care about us, that we are not alone in our wilderness season. So God, I pray for my friends, for the situations that they're facing, that they will remember that they can always let go and give their problems to you, that they are not in control of others and outcomes. And most of all, that they would be reminded that surrender is the path to peace. And so thank you for this time that we've had together. In Jesus' name, amen. So friends, thank you for joining me this evening. If you are listening on the replay, we are glad that you're here. I'm going to announce the names of the winners. Actually, you know what? I think I have to do it after the broadcast because I've got to look at the comments. And so I'm going to go ahead and close us out this evening. If you order the book, if you've ordered the book, I want you to go to barbroos.com. And the reason why I want you to go to barbroos.com is because on the Surrendered page, on the Surrendered Devo page, there is a link to some special freebies. So if you've already ordered the book and you have your receipt for wherever you purchased it at, you can get special freebies. And one of those freebies is that you can actually download this card as well as some other freebies and some other special offers. So if you like this card here and you want to print it out, you want to post it up somewhere, and you've already purchased the devotional, go to barbroos.com and you can, there's a link there that says click here if you've already purchased the devotional. And that will take you to where the freebies are at. So that is at barbroos.com on the devotional page. So friends, thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you for sharing your comments. I love that Zelda says she's got to stop pushing and pushing. Takeaways for Ann is pushing the agendas in her marriage, needs to surrender to God. Let's see. Amanda said surrender principle number 4. Trusting God's promises will bless me, but pushing my plans will stress me. Let's see. We've got Amy says that dang, God is calling me out. So there are so many takeaways that you've had. I pray that you will go over, do the freebies, get the card like Tammy. She's taped the card to her bathroom mirror. And I am grateful that you are there. Elizabeth, thank you for putting the link in the comments. So friends, thanks for joining me this evening. I'm grateful that you're here. God bless you all, and good night. Bye-bye.